myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on that.
Hi and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It is the Fab Four show, although at the moment it is back to the three amigos. Keith is running late, clearly, and it's a big welcome to Mitch and to Steve Hasty. And as always, plenty to talk about with regards to Newcastle and I guess England, lads, because we have to pay some kind of respect, I think, to Gareth Southgate and the boys, Mitch, after such a fantastic Euro 2020 tournament. I don't think any of us expected England to get to the final, but they did, and they didn't let us down. And ultimately, it was a flip of a coin. We weren't good enough at penalties again, and we ended up losing a final on penalties. But it's a step closer to winning that elusive trophy that's avoided us since 1966.
Very true, mate. I've taken a few days to take stock of it all, have a little think about it, because I think if you'd asked me this on Monday, I think I would have been in a very different mindset. But you have to look at it this way: we've gone through a tournament unbeaten in 90 minutes. That's got to be said. There's over 90 minutes nobody's beaten, and there was probably for me a 15-minute period after I scored that first goal where if we'd been a bit braver, I think there could have been a second there quite happily, and that would have been a very different game. But hindsight makes you genius, so it's very difficult to, the what ifs where you said that with Newcastle United, aren't we, really? So there's no really any difference there. The only thing that I still question, I know they've obviously done a lot of work on the training ground, and they've obviously, worked out who was going to take the penalties, the substitutions towards the end of extra time was clear about that. But the seasoned players on that pitch were quite happy to stand back and let a 19-year-old lad who's never taken a penalty in competition before take that vital penalty. And I do question that. I question that in terms of, one, does it show togetherness of the squad that everybody trusts everybody, whether they're 19 or 39? I don't know. Or could there have been a better way to do that than leave that entire thing sitting on a 19-year-old shoulders? That's the only thing at the end of the day I question. Everything else you cannot really fault. Attitude, togetherness, the squad, ethos, keeping the group together, keeping the group morale high. You cannot really complain about it. And I think we're now set up for hopefully to do more, because the age of that squad, that could do another 2 European Championships if they wanted to.
Yeah, I would agree. Evening, Keith. The Fab Four reunited, so good to see you. Good to see you here, mate. Just talking about England, and from our perspective, how well they did, because ultimately, I don't think any of us expected England to get to the final, and they went through an entire tournament unbeaten. They lost on penalties. It's as simple as that, and we're one step closer, really, to, as I said to Mitch when we opened up, of winning that elusive trophy. It's been a great tournament for England and put a smile on everybody's face after a tough 15 months.
I don't think we'll have a better chance. And at the start, Steve Hasty, I thought it was miraculous how he picked Italy out, because even though they had great form, people were picking France and teams before them. But with England, I think people thought they would, quarterfinals, be about it. And they got where they got. They certainly cheered everybody up. The atmosphere on that Sunday night was just incredible. And some of the build-up games before that were, because we've got to remember, we beat Germany. The Ukraine games can't be brushed aside. We hammered the Ukraine. So for me, I think they did great. When you talk about the penalties, the only thing I think is when you're putting kids at that age on to take a penalty, I think it's a lot harder to go up and juggle and stop and try and send the goalie the wrong way. And even when somebody does it, as well as Rashford, because Rashford actually had the goalie there on his back, he still missed the goal. And that's nerves, that's tension, it's adrenaline, it's everything pumping. So for me, I would do more Shearer type of attitude. There's a ball. She used to walk away. He already knew where he was going to put it. He'd turn around, look at it, and go and do it. And he used to hit it so hard where he wanted to go, it was hard to stop in any case. So I've heard a lot said this week by people about put your foot through the ball, and for kids as well, 19-year-old kids, it impacts seasoned pros in the 30s. So when kids come in 19-year-old, they come against a crowd like that, and then the enormity of what's going on and the tension, it's going to affect them. And I just think that they would be better trained to slam the ball, to put it in. And it's uncanny to think that Kane's was nearly safe, but it was hit so well it still went in. And Maguire's was never going to get saved by anybody. And that's the quality of training now do. But as far as England goes, you kind of knock them. I think they've done absolutely brilliant. I think, as a squad, there seemed to be a great togetherness. And I wouldn't notice Graham Jones in that. He seemed to play a big role. And Graham Jones seemed to be, players were going to them after the game and put their arm around him and everything. So he seemed to be really involved. If you think he's got experience with Belgium and England now at that level, he's becoming like quite coveted in that sense, I think.
Yeah, he has. I mean, he's he's certainly got made a big impression going in at the the last minute when they lost to coach, and he's done really well. But Steve, I mean, we watched it together in the Tyneside Irish Centre. Great to to be in and be part of a crowd watching it on the big screen. But it was it was that first half, wasn't it? The first half, England really dominated, got off to a great start with the early goal, but then the second half, I've heard a lot of people say, well, England didn't come out, but Italy did. And that, you've got to give Italy credit. They're a class team. They came out, they had a different game plan. The pressure was on and, they got that equaliser. And from then, it was just very, very, very tense between both teams. Technically a decent game between both teams to cancel each other out. And then it was down to that, who was going to take the penalties the best. It was as simple as that.
That's right. Absolutely, Steve. I mean, it was great atmosphere. It was great to be with a great crowd of people watching it on the big screen, as you say. I think what I would say is that the good thing about the tournament is that with England doing so well in the tournament, it kept the whole tournament alive for us. At a time when we haven't been able to get out, we haven't done much, we haven't met much, a lot of things. The way the country's been under lockdown, I think if we'd got knocked out in the in the first round, it would have really, really, the whole tournament would have just disintegrated. We would have lost interest. The very fact that we were there until the last few seconds with a penalty shootout, that's great. It made the tournament, absolutely made the tournament, and it was, as Keith said, it was probably the the best opportunity that we've had in those 55 years of actually winning something. But you can't take anything away from the Italians. I thought. It's that old adage, isn't it? You score too early in a game. We've heard it said many, many times that you score too early and then you don't go ahead and you don't then push your advantage, then it'll come back and bite you. And eventually it did. And Mancini, he didn't panic on the line. He made his substitutions at the right time. They dominated possession. And I think that the longer the game went on, the more England really looked as though they felt among themselves that they weren't going to get a goal, that it was only going to go one way. So what they did was they made sure it was going to go to penalties. And then, like you say, I mean, the first two penalties, absolutely superb. And then the last three penalties, all this fancy walking up, this stupid hops, jumps, skips, and all that type of thing. And we could criticise it, but that's players with confidence. Those three players, those three lads obviously were confident in what they were going to do. If they had practiced, I bet they'd practiced those type of penalties more than they practiced the ones that Keith's talking about. The old Shearer-esque, walk away, turn, run up and just hit it. Absolutely smash it, as you say. But, it's that cockiness of youth, I suppose, and it caught them out. And we'll argue till the cows come home, and we'll talk about it endlessly over the next sort of until the next championship, whether or not Southgate got his selections right, but it makes no difference because at the end of the day, the penalties didn't go in. You've got to give credit to Pickford for the saves he made, even the little hop skip from Jorginho that he managed to suss out. But all in all, a great tournament, a great fill up for the country. But unfortunately, we just lost that in that final few minutes.
Yeah, it's it's now consigned to the record books, but we look ahead really to Qatar now and hope that the team have learned from that and can potentially, I suppose, because it's halfway through our season, have a lot more energy and a bit about them to get out there and do the job. But I've got to agree with Keith. We'll never have a better chance, certainly, of winning a trophy in front of our own fans again. Let's talk about the downside, Mitch, and that, of course, is the aftermath, which saw footage released from fans' phones, as we often see these days, of people barging through fences to get in despite not having tickets. Italian fans attacked by England fans. Again, something we don't want to see, something we thought was consigned to the history books. And then, dare I say it, the predictable racism that we saw once again on social media aimed at the players who'd missed the penalties. I mean, nothing short of disgraceful, but sadly something we come to expect time and time again, and something that's left a very bitter taste in England fans' mouths, and of course led to fines for England, more fines to come, I would imagine, and bigger still, probably ended any chance of us hosting a major tournament in football for the foreseeable future.
Very possibly, and here we are again, and I don't know how many times we'll have to repeat this about there still remains no place for any of what you just said there in modern football, or in any football for that matter. We're not talking about the late 80s and early 90s when we used to go to away games and there's all sorts of shenanigans going on. We're not talking about...
Oh, he's gone.
He's back, though.
He's back.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, IT out here at the minute. It's all over the place. I don't know what's going on. It's supposed to be a more enlightened time, and yet it isn't, apparently. Yeah. The fans barging through, you can put a level of that to exuberance and people desperate to see the team. I do think perhaps there should have been more planning on the authority side of things to deal with that in a better fashion, because I don't think it was handled well. Video images of that steward lunging into sort of check to you like challenges on the fans and tripping them left, right, and centre. That's not helpful either. It doesn't have a good look. Attacking Italian fans, not a good look. Even down to this, the thing that gets me, watching fans in fans parks chucking beer and bloody glasses all over the place. It's somebody said to me out here who's in the entertainment sort of runs a bar out here, and he says since COVID's sort of been around and restrictions are easing over here, he feels like so many people have forgotten how to socially interact properly. The amount of hassle he's having with people who get aggressive immediately that he asks them to put a mask on when they go into the bathroom, who cannot understand why they can't have their own way all of the time, and why some of their behaviour may reflect badly on the establishment and land them with a 50,000 dirham fine, because the authorities here are very strict on some of the COVID regulations in terms of distancing and wearing your mask still and obeying all the rules. And it's not the individual who get into bother, it's the establishment. And some of the tales I've been told from people having to deal with members of the public who just simply seem to have forgotten how to behave themselves. And we've seen elements of I struggle to call them England supporters. Some of the behaviour is atrocious. And this behaviour on social media, I wish I could be surprised by it. There's still very much a very unwelcome and ominous racial undertone without certain sections of social media. And it raises questions again about, is it time to tag an ID in some way to each account, so finding out who those individuals are is easy. I see one of them who's been suspended from his job pending investigation is playing the "I was hacked" card, which is just it's up there with the dog ate the homework for me. It's just, come on, man up. If you're going to do something like that and behave like that, own it. Have the balls to own it, because you've said it, it's out there. And whether you've just let your veil slip about what you really are from what you pretend to be day in, day out, I'm sorry, you've got to own that, mate. This pathetic sort of I've been hacked skin cheese that people trot out, it's ridiculous. And there's absolutely no place for it in society. There's absolutely no place for it in modern culture, and there's certainly no place for it in the modern game.
No, definitely not, Keith. The social media side of it is abhorrent, as we know only too well. But police have made arrests. Four people arrested, I believe, over the last 48 hours, and probably a few more to happen. But until these major social media companies, the ones who control these social media platforms, your likes of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, then unless they get the house in order and make changes, which, let's face it, in this day, we can, Richard Branson's flying people to the edge of the world into space now. Surely the algorithms can be changed, and all you need to do is ask everybody who's part of your social media network to provide some kind of positive ID, and if you are racist, homophobic, whatever on social media, basically it's one bad thing and you're out. You're just not allowed to re-register on that account anymore. It's not that difficult, is it, Keith?
I don't think it is, and I think social media platforms have got a lot to blame for this, because if you look at something as common as Twitter, you can set up in that for 2 minutes. I mean, there's been instances this week where lots of new accounts with 2021 July have been registered, and people just send abuse on them, and then they switch them off. And intelligent people can see what's happening, see them coming, but when you talk to some of the social media platforms, I was talking to one guy that was getting abused left, right, and centre, and he's having grave trouble just actually registering and complain about it. And I know a lot of other people do that, and they're very efficient at doing it. But for an average person, especially when you get in your 50s, that want to start doing complaints about social media, it becomes difficult. It becomes a difficult platform to do, because sometimes they don't listen to you. And I just think there's a overriding big brother amongst social media, where all the big platforms are choosing to withhold. I mean, years ago, they said that if you had an Apple iPhone, you got arrested, the police couldn't get the information off the phone. And they'll say, if you've got on this platform or that platform, they won't ever give your details up. But at the end of the day, when you're breaking the law, there's got to be a rule that overrules that. And just say you've gone on there, you've done it wrong, so you're going to have to be, get your accounts removed from you. But the thing that frustrates me about this World Cup, about this European Championship, is we've just spoken there, and Mitch, as you eloquently said that, and I think Steve Wraith might have said that we might not get a major tournament. I think it was you, Steve. You said you might, and it's probably right. So why won't we get a major tournament? And do we deserve one? So when you think of the shortcomings in places like Qatar, however they got a World Cup, and there's many suggestions how they got it, it went through and it was passed. But if you look at the shortcomings and the culture and everything in that country to here, you would say, well, why can't England not get their act together and do it, having hosted championships before? And to me, this is me being, just open and honest. If you cannot recognise that you've got a European final taking place at Wembley Stadium between Italy, which has a big contingent of supporters who are English-based. There's a lot of Italians live in England, and that's going to be well visited, that game. And then that England aren't going to get in, the numbers are going to be down. And you can't put sufficient stewarding on the first gates. You can't put an effective system to wind through, because all they were doing was getting checked for COVID. They'll go through the COVID checks when they wrecked it. But it was when they got past the first stadium entrance to the second one, the people inside the ground didn't know anything about it. And that is all practice. It's played out. It's rehearsed. It's the same as if a pop concert happens, somebody gets killed. They rehearse it, they redo it. And when you've got a European Championship final with England playing versus Italy at Wembley, you don't get your security right, I ask a question: do you deserve to host a big event?
I worked in the security industry for 18 years, and I know the situation here. A lot of those security staff that you see, even at St James's Park on a match day, are on the lowest possible pay rate, Keith, and that is a problem. And I've often said that really it should be at least the biggest, burliest, well-paid stewards on the gates, because that's your point of access. That's the area where you're more concerned, especially these days with the threat of terrorism. You need to have your most experienced staff on the front line The rest, yeah, inside the ground, there's less chance of trouble inside the ground these days because of the cameras, etc. We don't see the repetition of what we saw back in the 80s, where there's full-scale riots within grounds, thank the Lord. But, those stewards should be inside, but the big one should be on the outside. And especially, as you say, the European, the Euro final. Where's the police? Where were the police? And I know that some of the footage, and I was very careful when I retweeted the stuff that I did after that game, because footage can be taken out of context. You don't know exactly where it is, what the situation is. Some people tended to say that was a COVID, the last COVID testing area. But I've seen many testaments on television this week from some pretty well-known faces, which would give me an idea that this is potentially some kind of higher-end ticket area. There's been one or two, celebs, ex-players who were all in and around that area. We heard Harry Maguire say his dad was in that section. So, and ended up with sustained broken ribs from a fall after being pushed over. So, you look at this and think, well, if that's an area where players' relatives are going, then surely this is going to be something which is going to have at least the better end of security, but clearly not. So, yeah, very, very disappointing. We've let ourselves down as far as a nation's concerned with not being able to manage an event. And, is that cost cutting, Steve? Do you think is that a cost cutting exercise on behalf of England, or is it just probably not expecting this type of trouble because that kind of thing doesn't go on anymore?
What it is, it's the FA once again abdicating its responsibility. It's the Metropolitan Police abdicating its responsibility. Tell me any other city in the world could have 250,000 people congregated outside a stadium from 11 o'clock in the afternoon, or in the morning rather, for an 8 o'clock kickoff. And the police, with all the cameras that they've got, all the security that they've got, the resources that they've got, to just allow it to just continue and continue and continue. So straight away, you've got, bearing in mind, this is the biggest tournament, the biggest football tournament for the last 3 years in Europe. There's only been the World Cup in 2018. So this is like the next big international sporting tournament, and it's taking place in this country, the final. And the police just were nowhere to be seen. So you've got to question the risk assessment that was done by the Metropolitan Police and the FA suits who got this totally wrong. That's where it starts. So as Mitch says, you put blocks and checks in place all the way through. You don't allow, bearing in mind there was only tickets for 60,000, you don't allow 250,000 people to congregate because you know that 190,000 don't have a ticket. Yeah. And then you let them get so close to the ground that eventually, why are you not checking tickets before you then check COVID for a start? That's my first thing. People are saying, they were going through a COVID check. Well, check to see they've got tickets first and only allow them into that safe zone. We've been to places like Barcelona where you get checked twice. That you're showing you, and this was way, way back. You used to have to show your ticket twice before you got to the turnstile even, because you've got the big burly riot police standing there who have got the dogs next to them who are growling at you, and they're checking to see you've got a ticket. So straight away you've got that, and this is the police. By the way, this isn't like stewarding. Once you get in there, the grounds are yes, they're stewarded. But we've seen in this country for the last 10 years how clubs have advocated or thrown away rather the whole responsibility because they don't want to pay the money. We've also seen the police, who, as we know, they get charged an absolute fortune if you're a football club to put police inside the ground. I think every copper that goes in, it was something like, well, it's going to cost you £100, just to have them there for a couple of hours, if not more. So over the years, we've seen less and less police in the ground as clubs have taken responsibility for their own stewarding. But the book has to stop. Yes, there are issues. There are social issues. There's we all know that there's this undercurrent of racism, and we've got undercurrent of violence that's hung around like a bad smell around English football for years and years. But on this particular occasion, the book stops with the people who organised that tournament and organised that final and allowed that amount of people to congregate to get to that point where it then became, let's face it, if you didn't have a ticket and you thought there was a way of getting into the ground, you would have tried it. Most people would have tried it. That's what I mean. The footage we're talking about, Steve, there was footage of fans trying to pile through the door. And from what I can understand, a lot of the violence that we saw on some of those clips that were coming through to us when we were in the Irish Centre were of England fans helping the stewards to push back the fans who were trying to break through the door, because those England fans had paid an absolute fortune to get in. This was an area where they felt as though they were going to be safe and secure, and they were annoyed, and they felt as though it was understewarded, and some of them took on the responsibility of the stewarding in a way, not in the right manner, by the way. I mean, lashing out and kicking people and kicking them on the ground and stuff like that. But you can imagine, things get heated. We've seen it at the match before when people have stood up in front of you and then somebody's had a pop at somebody else because they're blocking the view. And, you see all sorts of things going on. But this idea that you can self-police a big tournament like that with the world's eyes on it, it's a joke. And let's face it, this government's been a joke for the last 18 months, 2 years anyway.
We're in a time where, let's not forget, COVID didn't just disappear during the championships.
No.
So there had to be a much better way to control that zone around the stadium where they knew thousands and thousands of people without tickets would be congregating also. Yeah. And there had to be a better way to zone it off. There had to be a better way to management. And time again, who's going to get the blame here? The fans. And that means everybody's not learned anything from Hillsborough forward at all, in any way, shape or form. And it really, yes, the fans have to take certain degrees of responsibility for some of the things they've done. But if that was controlled and zoned and managed better, it wouldn't be a talking point. It wouldn't have come to pass. Yeah. And I tell you what, some of them that work their ticket outside the ground, if you're thinking of coming over to Qatar in this part of the world and doing stuff like that, I think you get a little bit of a warmer reception.
Exactly. Tell you what, another thing is, you talk about society. I mean, we've now got situations, and I've heard this anecdotally and witnessed it myself. And kids are they're just screenshotting negative tests, and they're just showing them at the doors of bars and stuff like that. That's it. They're showing the screenshot. They're not zapping the COVID restriction or stuff like that. They're going, I'm already clear. And it's I heard this from guys who are working on the doors anyway, in Newcastle, and it's happening all around the country. And we do, as a society, we do have to really, really take a look at ourselves and understand what's happened in the last 18 months, how polarized certain people have become. And I think one of you mentioned early on how, as a society, we've forgot the morals that we, I think it was you, Mitch, you said, people have forgotten how to interact. They've forgotten how to treat other people in a polite way. It's become and it'll be even worse on Monday when the restrictions are allegedly going to be completely lifted, and yet we're already hearing that they're going to be lifted, but they're not. But the onus is now on the public themselves. So the restrictions are gone, but we'd like the restrictions to remain, but it's up to you. Well, when you give people that type of option, then you know that the option they're going to take is, thanks very much, but no thanks. And I'll just stop.
Does that not leave them a way out, Steve? Because that leaves the option for those in charge to say, well, we left it up to you.
Yeah, of course it does.
You screwed the numbers up. I mean, we removed it because you wanted to remove it, and then we left it up to you. It's your own stupidity. So to me, they'd have been better off continuing it on for another month if it was going to check the figures, or scrapping it 3 months ago. Because
you know what, kid, it's the equivalent of the Treasury turning around. We've got no money because you all spent it.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what it is. Yeah, we've got no.
That's fair. That's fair. Crap that, Mr. Hasty.
It is. It's you're down to brass tacks, yeah. And you can blame anybody,
I'm laughing at what Mitch said. He says it's so calm. He says, if you think about coming over and causing trouble over this part of the world, and you put it in such a nice way, Mitch, really what you're saying is, don't bother because you'll get clattered. Yeah. If you're lucky, you'll get clattered.
Yeah, you should say that, but it's all right, Mitch. You work there, and you know what it's like as a visitor going there. and you're very much aware of how you have to behave. You're very much aware, and it doesn't take long. You know, you don't have to sit and read a rule book. You just know that you're going to show respect to people, and you're going to act in the right way. And if you remember, I think it was on my second or third trip that I came over to see you. And I said, you know what, there's something about living in a totalitarian state that I'm starting to enjoy, you know, because I feel comfortable. You know, the fact that now I've got rules that somebody's declared, as opposed to now in the UK where I've got, well, no rules. It's almost the rules of the jungle, you know. It's like, get on with it and you know, make it up as you go along. I'd far better be in a country where I'm told what to do, especially in a situation that we've been in, and just get on with it and just realize that it's for your best interests. But I think as you get older, you begin to feel like that.
It's why we're ahead in terms of you know, lifting certain restrictions. Yet what they haven't done and still haven't done here is gone right free for all. Off you go. There's still plenty of rules and regs and things, you know, monitoring what's going on. And in terms of football policing, I've seen it firsthand over here. I went to the Asian Champions League semi-final a few years ago. Roy Aitken took us along with Al Ahly of Dubai against Al Hilal of Saudi, Al Walid's team. Funny enough, and that was a proper game with two banks of fans going at each other, proper edge, and very efficient mounted police officers making sure they didn't get within 5 meters of each other. It was like being a proper derby game. So make no mistake about it. I'm quite sure the Qatari police would be as prepared and used to it. I've had a little chat with Roy Caviani because he works with one of the Doha football clubs, and I know that there's a lot of preparation being put in with fan parks in mind and with controlling fans and how they're going to, because Qatar very much like here does allow alcohol on licensed premises. How they're going to work around that, how they're going to work around giving fans access to alcohol. But I'm telling you now, you overindulge here, they don't take kindly to it, and so it's going to be. It's going to be interesting to see how it works out. Aye.
Mitch, is the social media, because this is ignorance on my behalf, is the social media any different? So if you had, you know, people on social media doing what those English inverted commas fans did, where they were racist and abusive to people, what would happen over your neck of the woods in MENA?
I am aware of Western people who've made comments on social media who've been deported.
Right.
Back to their home countries. It's usually the big thing that trips it over here is if you take images. It's why sometimes I see stuff and I really want to take a picture and hide it on Twitter. Sometimes it's hilarious, but it could literally get us kicked out of the country if the wrong person complains to the wrong place.
Yeah.
Social media, certainly social media, messaging apps, and all sorts of electronic communication are monitored here. There's no doubt about that. This is probably being monitored right now while I'm speaking to you guys. And it's done with very specific reasons in mind. But if somebody, if somebody makes a complaint about what somebody does or says on social media, and that could be tracked back to an individual, that individual can be in severe bother. Usually a high fine, sort of 100,000 dirhams, something like that. Sometimes a jail time, and in the most extreme cases, deportation. I think the most recent one.
What's 100,000 dirhams, Mitch?
Divided by 5 is about right.
Jeez.
20 grand.
For what for doing? Oh my God.
I would like
you should get it over here, Steve.
The fines and the penalties for a lot of things are quite, intended to be punishments.
Over here, you'd be paying £1 a week, of course, Keith.
I think exactly. I think the moral of it all is it not that Qatar have got it and they know how to police it and run it and keep people in check. We were hoping to get it. We were given a trial run and we cocked it up majorly.
I think we're balls up big time.
Yeah.
Well, we've all agreed on that.
Well, isn't it? If you get into any trouble over there, the police come down on the side of the person who complained first. So they look at their complaint.
Can be.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
you have
can
to
be. Who gets
very
a complaint
careful
in first?
situations, especially if it's an Emirati that's making the complaint.
Oh, look, once you're in a situation with a local making complaint, you're in a different ballgame altogether.
Yeah.
I can almost guarantee if I have a bump in the car with a local here, no matter who has been at fault, I'll get the red ticket that says it goes onto my insurance, not it.
God.
Mad, that, like, absolutely mad. Okay, we do encourage questions from viewers, and Wayne Bennett sent one to Keith Patterson, actually, who forwarded it on to me. He said, question for tonight's show: if the new owners came in and changed and revamped the stadium, what first would you want them to do, Mitch?
Me, just clean it and tidy it up. I think the stadium is an initial thing for new owners. It just needs tidied up for now. It shouldn't be one of the first things on the list. We've got so many other infrastructure things that are more priority for the benefit of the club going forward in the future that are higher on the list in terms of infrastructure and things like that than doing anything major with the ground. The ground just needs a bit of care. That's all. A bit of TLC. For me, that would be the first thing to do with the ground as such. Discussions about the ground should only really then kick in once the infrastructure's in place, once the team's in place, and then, dare I even mutter it, once we've got some sort of success, however you wish to define that. Because that's when we need to have the true talks about the ground. If, for example, within 3 years we've won an FA Cup and we're in and around the Champions League places, Europa League places, and we've got a full ground week in, week out for 2 or 3 years on the bounce. That's when you then turn around and say, what do we need to do with this ground situation? Do we need more seats? Do we not need more seats? What do we do here? So for me, in terms of the ground early on, give it some love. And that's it.
Yeah, I would say the same. For me, it just needs, more washing than I've ever known it need washing before. A good lick of paint, and maybe a little bit of a major overhaul in the standard fans enclosures. The corporate facilities are fine. I think it's just the rest of the ground, like the Gallagher end and the Leazes end, and have just been left to decompose. And things which you would take as basic within a football stadium. I mean, it literally is like walking around the set of our Wiedersehen pet in the Gallagher end at times. I mean, we've moved now into the Milburn stand, me, my dad, and my brother. But it's not very welcoming, put it that way. And when you see, the likes of Tottenham Hotspur, I know it's a purpose-built stadium, but when you see the likes of Tottenham Hotspur's ground compared to ours, we are miles behind. So, I would agree. A little bit of TLC. What about you, Keith?
When I got the question off him, I first read it. I thought it was a belting question off Wayne, by the way. But I thought at first he was talking about, as well as the ground, what you do. And I immediately, my brain went to the training ground, because we're not attracting the right managers, stroke players by doing that. And then I started thinking about young players and bringing proteges in, development, youth development. But when I've just reread the question on my phone while you were going through that, and he is talking about the ground improvements. So I'd made sort of some thoughts in my mind. First thing I'd want to do is what Mitch says, revamp it. You know what I mean? I'm talking about on each stand, you could put a modest budget to improve it in the stands. But then someone needs to redesign it so that when you're inside it feels like you're in Tottenham's ground. And again, this isn't huge money. But when you're at the club, I think the signage, I think everything about the club, the feeling, the experience of going to St. James's Park isn't what it was when that stadium was first built. And you could say that if you were winning and if, as Mitch says, got an FA Cup under your things, you wouldn't worry so much where you were going to. You'd just go and it would be going home, Cathedral on the Hill. You wouldn't be bothered. But it has been neglected. And I think when you take all the current signage and advertising off, I think you could do an awful lot more with it. Quick wins, you could get sponsorship. If you look at the roof, in the upper tiers of the Milburn, you could get TV screens on there. you know, so people could look at it to the left. You could get sponsorship to do that for nothing. But the only part of the ground that I think has a bit of a feel is when you go in one of the boxes and you go into the back of the Melbourne, you go to that area where you go up the stairs, it's all escalators, you go upstairs, and that whole platform with all the boxes are impressive. But it's as though it's been done. I mean, back at the East Stand, I just think the whole area's gone flat. You know what I mean? And as a ground, got to remember that we still put in 50+ thousand. I was a conversation last night with somebody who's bought into a Premier League club, and we were talking about the numbers, and he was still shocked that we've got the record for the Championship. And then if you think of the crowds we put in the Premiership, we deserve an up-to-date stadium. You know what I mean? So it's not as though you have to rebuild it, but you've certainly got to bring it up to date, and it's massively behind. I would say things as simple as the pies. You know, they never blow you away. Yet when I go to the Northwest to an away game, I always want the pie because their pies are always better than ours. You know, just things like that. But Steve's nodding because it's right. If you went to Oldham or you went to I don't know, like all those grounds, Bolton and places like that, you'd never miss a pie when you were down there because they just cracking meat and potato pies and stuff like that. Up here, you eat a pie and you think, I'm starving, so I'm going to have one. And I just think the whole feeling at St. James is just, it's just slowly gone to sleep. And Mitch has covered it by saying TLC. That's what it needs.
Yeah, Steve, I mean, I think we're all going to agree on this point as well. It just needs that little bit of, a little bit of update and a little bit of TLC.
Yeah. First thing I would do, I'd open the Melbourne up, I'd fill the ground and let we all cheer as the Sports Direct signs were ripped off the front in front of on the East Stand. That's the first thing I would do. And I tell you what, I reckon you would fill it. I'm convinced you would fill it.
I probably would.
And as every sign came off, you would have the biggest cheer that you probably hear all around the city. That's the first thing I would do. No, seriously, a little bit of TLC, a lick of paint. Always feel, whenever we leave and you walk through the Gallagher end, I always feel as though it's just a cavernous concrete metropolis. It doesn't look exciting. It's just, you're just there, you know. It's just somewhere to pass through. And as Keith says, you look at what's available in the Melbourne and in the corporate areas and how it's nicely decorated and stuff like that. And then obviously you've got the main area behind the goals of both the Melbourne and the Gallagher and the Leazes end. But they're just concrete. That's all it is. It's just a concrete facade. It's dark, it's dingy, it's not inviting. You've got TV screens that most people have got bigger in their living room than anything else. There's nothing there that generates people to come in a little bit earlier. You know, the whole aspect of it, it's just like, get you in, get you out, and you know. At one point, they didn't even used to keep the catering open, and the East Stand was the world's worst. You know, the shutters were pulled down with 2 minutes before the end of half time. You know, you waited for the queue to die down, and the number of times you mistimed it, and you got to the turn, and she was pulling the shutters down, and they go, "Well, you must have some pies left," and they go, "Well, no, the pies are gone, and there's no thing and all that," and all these little type of things. And it was the way you were treated. And it used to be a bugbear with me. I always used to have a lucky cup of coffee at half time when I was in the East Stand, even if I'd had 4 or 5 pints. It was like a thing, and I'd walk up after a minute after kickoff, and the lads would shout like, "Oh, he's a lucky cup of coffee, I've got it." And the number of times you walked up because you'd completely mistimed it, and the shutters had come down 2 minutes from the end of half time, and you didn't get one. I would go scatty me. I was the number of arguments I had with them about it. But it was those little things. You know, now I noticed that I don't know about the East Stand because I haven't been in since I changed tickets. But I know that you can still stand around and get a pint, for example, after the match in the Gallagher end. But even then, it's like drawn teeth when you ask for one because they've already cashed up and all that type of thing, you know. And I just feel as though that the whole sort of ambience is gone, the whole presence. It's as though it's just been left, and that's what happens. You get a nastiness about it, you know.
Steve, that extends to other areas. I'll give you. It's funny, Keith touches on things like catering, and you touch on feeling like, right, it's getting you in, getting you out. My dad would tell you this. When we first moved into or 1892, there was about 10, 11 of us to sit together. And the catering in there was so good at first that we would all be there for it opening at 1. We'd go in, we'd have something to eat, a few beers before kick-off. Then after the match finished, we'd have a beer order waiting on the table for after the game. A lot of we would also then get something else to eat. And if there was a match on the telly, that was a 5 o'clock kick-off, we'd watch that whilst drinking more beer in there. And we were made to feel welcome that we're going to sat there all night. And then during the Ashley tenure, the catering got worse and worse and worse that we just didn't bother going and didn't bother eating. And as soon as the match was over, you're pretty much kicked out. It's 1 pint out. Totally different feel, totally different atmosphere. And you think if we had owners who cottoned on that you could get people into that ground around about midday, 12:30, and give them an experience where they would be happy to stand there in the concourse, as comfortable, eating something that's actually of decent quality, sticking a few beers down their neck, and you could probably price those beers at overpriced, and people would still do it. And then same after the game, hang on, why don't you just stay and have a couple of beers here before let the crowd clear? People would do it, and the club would make a bloody fortune. I'm convinced of that. But they've lost all that custom because we got out the habit of doing it. And over time, Glad's gave the tickets up. So that group of 10 is now a group of 2. And Steve sits in one of them, and my dad sits in the one next to him.
Let's face it, I mean, a lot of this stuff at the end of the day, at the end of a match day, is chucked out. I mean, you know, if there's a 2-week gap between a game, then the beer is going to go off, the pies and burgers and hamburgers that haven't been sold aren't going to be, you know, I genuinely, and I've suggested this, and the club did take it on at one point, but then made a major U-turn for whatever reason. But ultimately, you know, doing like a fans park, would it be a good idea, but also doing something along the lines of after the match, allowing people to stay in for an hour and putting the highlights of the game on the TV, on the consoles. You know what I mean? Have enough TVs up in the various parts of the ground and then selling the beer and everything off for half price. Do you know what I mean? So just giving the fans something back, you know, take a leaf out of Leicester's book who, you know, do things the right way and, you know, try and be the pioneers in this, put a bit of entertainment on. Have Supermark or have John Anderson or whoever's at the ground. Some of these people who go to every home game, get them on the payroll. John Beresford, who does the lounges, get them to come and speak to the fans in the Gallagher, the East Stand, wherever. Just 4 players in each stand. You know, whatever it takes, get them to come across and do it. It's a simple thing, isn't it? But it will be so effective.
If we had a decent bar that could give the Strawberry a run for its money inside that room, and it was ran right, people would go there, and they'd bounce between there and the Strawberry. If we had a restaurant that overlooked the pitch and had a decent chef, somebody like Kenny Atkinson, who's got a Michelin star running it, people would go there just to eat their dinner and look at the pitch.
Yeah, of course.
And they would, because we all bloody would. Mm-hmm. We were going to go the night. We'll go to St James's. We're going to go and sit and get in the restaurant and have a look at the ground. And you know, if that was the kind of ground we had, and the club had that pride in the ground, and they knew how to do it, it's not even just a case of build it, they will come. It's a case of get the atmosphere and the welcoming part of it right. Oh no, boy, they will come. That's what I believe anyway.
The only bit I don't agree with, Steve says the pies will go off. They're already off before they put them in, Steve.
Allegedly.
You're off before you get them, I tell you. You've got to be hungry if you go to the match and buy a pie, mind. Like that's it. It's a test of that.
What I've never understood is why can you only buy a program off a program seller outside the ground? Why can't you buy one inside? Why is there not a club shop inside the ground as well as outside the ground? Why is there no facility inside the ground to actually buy merchandise and that type of thing? It's as though they don't want to sell anything. It's as though they don't want to market the football club right. They don't want they don't realise what they've got. You know,
no.
You know, you go to Germany and you go as a tourist, and one of the first things you do is you go to the stall inside the ground and you buy a scarf or you buy a pin badge or something like that, and you do it because, well, you're going to be sitting with a lot of German fans from whichever club you've gone to, be it Schalke or Werder Bremen or whomever, and you want to make them realise that you're part of the day, and then they see you in the scarf, and they know that you're not a Schalke fan as such, but they know that you're there to watch some decent football, and by Leverkusen, another example of grounds I've been to, and the fans see you in the scarf, and it's like you're part of it, and you had no intention of buying it before you got in the ground, but because the facility was there, and because you've already had a couple of pints, then you're going to go, you know what? It's only €10. Yeah, get me one, will you? And once one of them got one, all 10 of them had one, and it was just like, it was just showing your appreciation. You can't even, like I say, you can't even buy a program inside the ground. Everything has to be done outside. It's weird. It's that
lad used to go around the ground with the flag, who used to sing the Blade Races. They used to like wave the big flag, do that for the start. I mean, that used to start getting people pumped up. But if you stop and ask yourself, you've got 50,000. Just think of how hard it is getting people in bars these days. And Mitch just saying there, let's suppose you only get 10%. You can only get 5,000 people to come from 12 till 3 and drink and eat. Christ almighty. I mean, Steve's been you in that game. If you had 1,000 people or 200 people drinking for 3 hours, it's a lot of money. And if you do that, but remember the peanut man? You used to stand there and chuck peanuts and walk around the pitch, perimeter. All that's added revenue. Everything you're talking about today is adding revenue to the whole experience. But at the minute, it's get there at 10 to 3, go upstairs, you don't buy anything, and you walk in. There's such a missed opportunity at that club. But I think you're all right in your first assessment that they make it attractive. You've got to make it look attractive. So I think it needs TLC and paintwork first, and then after that, you're talking about making an experience. What it was like to go at the game and what made that ground better than other places.
The thing that gets a lot of people railed up is to say, well, our fans were not customers, but actually we're both.
Oh yeah.
We are both.
Yeah.
And you can be a fan, and you can be a customer.
Yeah.
And it's how the club use that unique position they have in the community, and that unique connection that they have to us as fans, to give us then a customer experience on top of the football.
Yeah. But you
only make everybody go for their different reasons.
But you only create.
They're missing so much income stream potential because of it.
Because they're not creating the demand. They're not creating the demand for those fans to become customers. Because all the fans, the 50,000 fans turn up and say, I'm a fan. And they say, do you want to be a customer? What do you want to buy? So as Steve Hasey says, let's put programs inside the ground. Let's sell snacks other than...
It's not rocket science, is it?
Let's change it. And let's make it better. But it's crazy when you think about it. When you talk about memorabilia, and you talk about like gear in the club shop. Why you wouldn't? There's nobody between 3 and 5 o'clock going to go in the club shop. What's to stop to have a mobile thing going around, like on the terrace, on the concourse, pushing along, go all sides of the ground? Remember when Mad Mick was the black white Santa and he went running along the thing? There's like 2 meters to go along. What's to stop a person doing each stretch of the concourses with memorabilia, where you could buy a top, a scarf, you buy anything you want, and you sit there and say, oh, I'll wait till they come round half time and I'll buy you something. I'll tell you what, they'll sell thousands and thousands of pounds worth. The thing is, all these things need care, they need desire, and they need somebody to want to do it. Somebody that says, I want to sell more and I want to make it better. And you've hit it on the head, Mitch. Fans are fans because they support Newcastle. Customers are fans who want to buy things.
Let's hope a takeover goes through and this can all be addressed by new owners, because I certainly think there's a lack of interest on behalf of the current owner and his staff to get these things right. Maybe he's not the staff as much, but there's no budgets there. There's nothing there to play with to even attempt to do that. They can only really run a basic ship. So let's hope this takeover goes through sooner rather than later. Okay, just about an hour into the show, it is time for your favourite section, guys. Otherwise known as Keith laughs at Steve Hasty for 10 minutes. I think that's what we should just rename it as. I'm trying to be kind to Steve, but it's very difficult when people keep sending in lookalikes. And as always, we do have one or two people who like to join in on a regular basis on this. And some people who don't tend to understand that it's a lookalike, not just make Steve Hasty look like somebody. But unfortunately, Albert is back in touch with some.
No.
He says it's clear that Steve Hasty needs a new hairstyle. Some alternatives to consider. What do you think?
Have a look, top right. Top
So
right.
in no particular order, we'll go with this one. Steve?
Not the blue. No.
Steve doesn't like the blue. Okay. A flat top, Steve.
Oh, Steve. That's class, man.
Probably not.
I'm more concerned about the look on your face, actually. That's you giving a death stare to Keith for laughing at it.
Sorry, mate.
Full metal Hasty.
Just with your
That's it. Very difficult to do that one. Okay, this one.
Oh, Steve.
I prefer the top to the hair, by the way.
Good. Ah, that there, lad. It was a rigger. That was a double.
He missed this one, he said. I'm not sure, Steve, at all at any of them haircuts would suit you, mate, to be honest.
I think I had a haircut like that when I was about 12, but I don't think it was white.
All right, great stuff. He did get back in touch then because he must have felt guilty and decided to hammer us. So he says, these four seem normal at 5:30, but you don't want to meet them after midnight. So he's got Keith there. As Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal Lecter. Mitch, rather appropriately, a guy with some funny teeth. Dracula. He's got me as Frankenstein. Which is pretty good. And Hasty is the werewolf. Looks like he's just about to go into Mitch's surgery there.
I watched Werewolf of London the other night. It was on Film 4. Like most people, you stop watching it after Jenny Agutter was no, but that's probably another story.
The good news is we do have some much have been compared to other people. So here's one from 100% Mags, another regular contributor. He says, here's another tune looking like for you guys. Mitch and the actor Aim McPherson, mostly as minor Claude in Liam Neeson's movie The Ice Road. I think that's a great resemblance. That, by the way, 100% Mags. If you just look, that's pretty good.
Just watch that, please. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And then we had his comparison to Holly and Debbie Hyman from American Dad. She went, there's no offense intended here, guys. That's none taken. I can see where you come from. It's a girl.
Not for us to say that, mate. It's up to Holly to say that, not us, by the way.
It's a girl. It's a girl and it's dark hair. So yes, I see where you're coming from. I thought this was brilliant from Tony Parcel. The legend that is Keith Patterson and Crichton from Red Dwarf. Not sure which one is which, he says.
Gee, yeah. Well, that's upset as that, mate. Tell you what, we'll call him Tony. I've got your name took here, lad. Not very nice at all.
Okay, this one I thought was brilliant. Somebody sent us that.
Yeah,
Finally
brilliant.
worked out who Matt Hancock looks like. Very, very good. Very good look-alike.
Hello.
Then we got this one, Steve Wraith and an Italian footballer, says Hangary at USA.com. Pretty good, mate. Yeah, not a bad one at all. Steve Hasty now getting placed in the Queen's. Queen again. It's the Queen again. Has old Tonian had a haircut? Sorry. Then Wayne says, sorry, Mr. Hasty. We'll let him off, Steve, because he did give us that question before.
Absolutely, yeah.
I don't know who on earth sent us this one, but this one was Mitch and Steve Hasty. I'm not sure which. I presume your combo, Steve, and Mitch is cross-dressing for some reason with a Nora Batty nylons on. But this was sent to us, Steve. Some again anonymously sent. Just said, "Is this Steve Hasty?" This was his dog.
Never had a play in my life.
I'm a bit concerned as to why the guy is actually holding the dogs by the throat to pose for the photograph. That was sent anonymously. And then I got this one in, which was very good by Nathan. Jar Jar Binks and Ronaldo. Ronaldinho. Yeah. Then this one from Robbie Banks. Enzo Ferrari,
That's
and
scary.
it is, isn't it? Could be separated at birth there. That one is brilliant. We then got this one from Ugly Camel, Ultratonian and a frog.
Work that one out.
I don't know what.
Mate.
Looks like a frog with headphones on.
Have a word with him. You'll have a word
That's
with
good.
him.
That's
Morgan
really good.
Healy and Enrique and me. So yeah, I'll take that one.
I bet you will.
It's quite a positive one. We got this one from Andrew Harbert. Lookalike Mitch playing for the Toon instead of Mark Viduka. Always knew there was a reason why we didn't see the player that was a Leeds. But there you go. Would you take Mark Viduka, Midge?
I would. I'd take Mark Viduka. Why not?
All right. Then we have this one. Lookalike Michael Gove's wife and Sarah Vine. Noel Fielding.
Yeah.
Right.
Noel Fielding and Gove's wife. Actually, hey, that's pretty spooky, that, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It is. That's really.
It's a good one. Thanks for sending us that one, Steve. I'm not sure who got that over to you, but it's a good one. We had this one, Steve Wraith, you get all over. Taste the World. Now that is pretty good. That, like me having some food with a bear, from Chris McElroy. So thanks for that. There was this one, a game which was pretty good. Mick McCarthy on the left and Rocky from Chicken Run on the right. Again, got a similar stance. Got this one sent by Ian Burns, Gordon Lee and Jaws from the Bond films.
I see where he's coming from. Similar
smile. We got sent this one, which is a bit topsy turvy from Billy Walker, but lookalikes, Steve and somebody with white hair, Mitch and John Wayne, and Gareth Southgate and a TV presenter. So yeah, that was pretty good, John Wayne. It's pretty good for you, that one, Mitch, as well.
I'll take that one.
Wesley Robson says Tom Rosenthal and Chiesa.
Now that is spooky as well. Yeah,
really
even got the hands out.
Yeah, that's Jim Rosenthal, the commentator's son, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah,
it is the very same. This one, actor Nick Robinson and Italian international Nicola Barella.
I can see where he's coming from.
Okay, so we're down to the top three in no particular order. Jimmy Bullard and that guy, I'm not sure who he is, but I can see it, Lee. Again, that's your choice, not mine, but I can see where you're coming from. That was third place. Second place from Wayne Bennett.
Tasty, that's that.
Lookalike, which I'm sure older Tony won't mind being compared to, could be related. Gaza. Which prompted me to make myself the winner this week of Toon Lookalike, because I thought definitely a Gascoigne in there, Steve, but probably more Mam Carroll.
Oh, hey.
Steve Hasty and Carol Gascoigne. I think that's a great lookalike. I knew that would get a laugh from Keith.
Feels like Carol, I
I bet Carol Gascoigne's gutted.
Honestly, I feel for her.
Poor lass. We sat there house today sitting gutted.
Right.
As always, Toon Lookalike has Keith in hysterics and Steve shaking his head. But thanks, keep them coming. Send them to me, Mitch and Keith Patterson. Don't send them to Steve Hasty. Brilliant stuff. Always a very funny section. Okay, new strips, lads. Mitch, you do like a strip. We've talked about this on and off over the last few weeks because there's been a few fake photos come out, etc. But we have had now final confirmation. They're on sale in the club shop. People are walking around with them. There it is, the new strip. What did you make of it? And we'll put the goalkeeper strip up as well, just for the fun of it. And already the rumoured second strip, which hasn't been confirmed, which is that one, which I really like. But go on, what's your take on the new strip?
I quite like it, to be fair. It's black and white stripes and you wear it on the pitch and it's our strip at the end of the day. We can go into minutiae about what it should and shouldn't have. As ever with these things, I think it will grow on the fan base. And as ever, I think when I've seen people actually wearing it, it's one of these ones that looks better in the flesh. Yes, I agree that with that sponsor on, it's difficult to, I think, get the best out of the strip. I think that sponsor's logo, wrong colour, too big for me. I don't know why they couldn't have tweaked that a little bit. But other than that, I think it's nice to be with a brand that is going to put us first, and over time, I hope the relationship develops into a good one and it can become more innovative. I think as a first attempt, it could have been better, but it's certainly not the worst kit we've ever had. I think people got their knickers in a twist when they saw the Goalkeeper's kit, thinking that was the away kit. I think as a Goalkeeper's kit, you're always going to have something a little different, and that's what it certainly is. I believe that rumoured away kit that you showed isn't actually the kit. I gather it is a darker blue with orange and white trims, what I've been told. But let's see. There's so much floating around about kits always and about leaks that these days I just take it in my stride and wait until it comes out and make my mind up then. Will I be buying one? Depends how much it costs to ship over here. Because I ain't relying on Emirates Post to get it to us, that's for sure, because I'll see it maybe in the middle of the season. So it would have to be DHL'd out here. And so once you start DHLing football kits out here, you're looking at sort of like £200 plus. And is it worth me lashing that out on a couple of for a kit? I don't think so. I'll stick with my retro kits. But I quite like it. I quite like the colour. I quite like it. I think it's a they've certainly put some thought into it. It just certainly doesn't look like a third tier template like the last kit we had off Puma, because of the way that deal was put together, that's what we got. We got what we're given. This looks like they've had a think about what they wanted to do with it. I'm interested to see the away kit, what it is, if there's something innovative on it, like the Tyne Bridge, which I believe is on that light blue kit, that mock-up that you've got. I'd like to see something that touches with the heritage of the club or the region or the fan base or all of the above. Let's see how inventive you can be. But I don't think they were ever going to be too inventive with their first kit, because they've got to make an impression with the fan base, and so I think they're probably trying to play a little bit safe. But I'm really excited to see how the relationship with Astoria develops, because we are their number one. They've said that quite clearly, that they want to be, premium. We want to be there, or they want us to be their premium line to showcase what they can do in football. I've seen a stadium jacket. If that's the real stadium jacket with the black and white stripes on, I think I'll happily sell one of them. Definitely. Not that I'll wear it much out here. Like, I'll probably wear it tied around my bloody waist most of the time. But I'd certainly think about having that. So yeah, let's see where the relationship with Astoria goes for me.
Keith, rumour has it, of course, that the number 4 is a subliminal message, a bit like Nick DeMarco. Jerry Sue picked up on that. He says, if we can see subliminal messages in Nick DeMarco's bacon, then why not the Fab 4 in our home kit? And of course, that number 4 is quite prominent. Gaza also said as well, wait until they realise the 4 is a tribute to the 4 Amigos. Meltdown. You ain't seen nothing yet.
I wrote to the club and spoke to them, and they said they would try and do something on the next design. So when we did the Fab 4, they just said, "Are you happy with it?" They sent us the design through, and I thought it was really good. So I think it's testimony to what we've done, and I think there's a lot of people out there that love this show that will be pleased with it. But I wasn't so pleased, because I asked them about changing the purple away top, and they told us it wasn't that one. And I heard the same rules as Mitch, is that there's a darker blue coming out to lighter blue. I don't dislike the light blue top. It's a bit Man City-ish, but it's what I sometimes do when I see an away strip is think, what's that going to clash with? And when you're going to play that, what strips will the opposition wear to get you to do it? And there's a lot of clubs. What's that?
Keith, that doesn't matter anymore. If you look at how the contracts work with the kits,
yeah,
you've got to wear the the away kit in a certain percentage of games and the third kit in a certain percentage of games.
Yeah.
And that's why you sometimes see teams change for no apparent good reason. You
Yeah.
think, well, there's no clash there. Why are you changing? It's because in televised games, you've got to wear certain kits for a certain percentage of the time.
I've seen designs of like a white shirt. And I've seen, you know, I'm a traditionalist, and I go back to, I always like the Ginola blue and red, the burgundy and blue, dark blue shirt. But I've always liked the Brazil top that we've had. You know, so I've always seen Newcastle's away strip as being Brazil colours and enjoyed that and the connection with Brazil. But I think the badge does spoil it. I always like the new strip. So if somebody bought me, you know, a Fab 4 top like that, yeah, you'd wear it around the town, and you think it was good. The goalie shirt, I compare when I see bright colours like that with Pavel's shirt. You know, Pavel always had that yellow shirt. Pavel, I don't think it's been bettered for a goalie top. You know, when you looked at that one with all the designs on, and so genuinely, I think the 8 out of 10. I'm not like wetting myself. I'm not rushing out to buy them, but I hope that the away shirt is darker blue, and I hope it's got orange on. I hope there's a bit more to it, because I just think they're quite flat. I think that, you know, I don't think any of them have said, God, I must go and get that shirt like I have done in the past.
Yeah. Steve, what about you?
I went into the club shop on Saturday just to have a look around after I'd finished doing what I was doing and walked in. And I was just interested to see what they actually looked like rather than just a photograph. They felt good. They seemed decent quality. I did speak to someone and they said that they felt as though the sizes were a little bit tight and you would need to probably buy a size up, which is fair enough. I did notice they had a massive supply of 2x XL, so that was good as well. So they're obviously thinking about some of our fans. I didn't see anything higher than that, must admit. But no, I mean, at the end, I think I said last week and the week before when we talked about this online, that, you know, it's black and white at the end of the day. You know, I sent you guys a photograph of me in a five-a-side competition down in Altrincham back in the 80s, and the shirt was virtually identical. In terms of the stripes and the width of the stripes and stuff like that. And I said, can you imagine? I says, nowadays people they look at that and thought it was Newcastle top. They'll be going, oh, there's too much white. There's not enough black. They've got the stripes in the wrong order, blah, blah. And ironically, the kit we were wearing was Wickham FC. And it was the same kit that they wore. And they ended up going to Wembley, you know. And I don't know what competition it was, whether it was the Vars or anything, but my pal Chris, he played for Wickham in the seconds, and we just borrowed the kit off his dad for to go down to represent the North East in a five-a-side competition. So at the end of the day, it's black and white. It's your club. If you're not going to buy it, then don't buy it. Don't whinge about it. You know, just take it for what it is. I quite like the Goalkeeper's top. I've never ever bought a Goalkeeper's top before. I think I probably would be tempted, and I think it was Bill Corkin who I spoke to last week who said you can take away that number 4 just by opening the buttons, because let's face it, nobody's going to wander around with it fastened anyway, you know. So, you know, as soon as the buttons are open, you'll suddenly no longer see the number 4. I know all the players are, you know, they're all kitted out and they're all nice and smart, but the interesting to see how many players actually at kickoff and running around actually have it completely buttoned up all the way. But it's black and white. They're the colours of our club, and I'm sure it'll sell well. And I think if the takeover happens, I think it'll sell extremely well.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of people who, you know, can't bear to buy anything from the club shop, or have anything to do with it. And I find it very interesting that a lot of the people who have a lot to say about it, they're still quite happy to send off to China for a knockoff. You know, and I think to myself, you go on and on about true fans and being a true fan and stuff like that, and then you're happy to wear some knockoff for 12 quid. And I don't get it. I know it's expensive; it's 65 quid, but that's the price. That's the price that most shirts are. I think I told you I was in JJB or JD Sports, and the England top was 90 quid. I think it came down to 69 in the end, but they had the ones that the players wore. They were 110. You know, before the competition started, and you know, 65 quid is the 49.95 that they used to be. I don't know how it suddenly jumped up to 65, but it's not that long ago that we had a fan-led review where something about football kit was talked about, and there was hell on about the price of football kit, and clubs were, if you remember rightly, Mike Ashley took them all to task about the cartel, of want of a better word, that was being run by the sports emporiums and the sellers about the price of kit, because he wanted to sell it cheaper. And I think he meet Dave Whelan, and Dave Wheaton told him that you don't come up to the north, you go back to the south. We're not listening to you. You don't, you don't realise what you're stepping into. That type of laissez-faire attitude that went to him. And I think he kicked it off. He kicked off this whole sort of price of kit. And I think at the time it was 29 quid, 29, 30 quid for a kit. It's doubled now. It is ridiculous, and I feel for people who have got families. My girls are all grown up. Excuse me, they can afford to buy their own if they wanted one. So but you've got a young kid and you want to kit him out, and you probably want the shorts and he probably wants the socks, and it's the thick end of 100 odd quid, and then he'll want the second shirt because his mate's got the second shirt, and And I think I presume families rely on birthday presents early, and granddad buying this for your birthday, even though your birthday's not till next June, all that type of thing. I'm sure that comes into the equation for a lot of families and a lot of youngsters. But we know how much kids love to wear kit. I'm just hoping we'll see lots of kids wearing it. I'm sick of seeing kids wearing Chelsea shirts and Arsenal shirts and Liverpool shirts. My two nephews, their father's a Liverpool fan, so they're very much into kit, full stop, but they have an awful lot more Liverpool kit than they do Newcastle, which I find quite sad when you're living in the region. But I'm just hoping that we can have a successful club, we can be proud of the black and white shirt, and youngsters will be able to start wearing the kit again. And it's that's the way it is. I don't get hung up too much on it anymore, other than I want to see our football club successful.
Yeah. So see all of us. I guess we have to talk a little bit about the ongoing legal procedures, Keith. So I'll come to you now on on the show. People do tune in, obviously, to listen to hear if there's any updates. I mean, last week was quite a busy week. This week seems to have gone quiet. Obviously, today is Thursday that we're pre-recording this. Tomorrow, obviously, me and Steve will be in London with yourself as part of the protest. And when this goes to where the protest will have taken place. But, has there been any movement as far as you're concerned? Anything to report?
I think there's movement on the legal side to do with arbitration, but it's fans are chewing me saying, like, can you tell us what's happening, what date starts and all the rest of it? And it's safe to say that, I say to people, sit back and enjoy it, because there was some documents released this week via one of the legal websites, and if I had Steve Hasty forward them on to me, and in those documents it shows the trouble that both sides have gone to try and keep the arbitration private or to release it legally. But for me, I don't believe that. On reading Chi's response from the DCMS, I've just seen it today on Twitter, I don't think that government or Dowden are going to change, and I don't think they're going to change in time, because it's not the competition action you're trying to get made public that will go public, it's the arbitration, and I think it's going to run, and it's starting, and I think that will be too late. I don't think government are going to watch the demonstration, protest, or whatever it is tomorrow, and then say, right, we want that public on Monday. I don't think it's going to happen. So for me, I think we've got to wait for the results of the arbitration, see how that goes, and then look forward to the CAT case as well. I was told from a reliable source that the CAT case will start at the end of this month into early next month, and then obviously progress from there. The CAT case should be getting answers by then, and you get lots of stories. I mean, if you read some of the stuff Ben Jacobs has put out, he's put stuff out in the last 24 hours. It's a total different angle that Ben's put out to what he's said in the past. He's put three 3 readings out and 3 comments out, which is picked up off one of those loaded interviews. And his last comment, he says he thinks that there's every chance it will go through. So that's what everyone's hoping for. But I think as fans, of which I'm just like everybody else, just an ordinary fan, we need to just sit back and watch the arbitration month, which is July, take place. We need to let it happen. If you read those documents that came out, there's a massive determination by the EPL to keep it private. And the club equally want to make it public, but I just don't see that happening. I'd love to be proved wrong. I'm saying that from a fan's perspective, that I just don't see time allowing us to get the arbitration into the public domain. I'm told from the club that if they did, they would get the takeover just on that. There's enough in that first ODT submissions by the club that should pass it through. But then you've got to ask yourself that if a jury or a panel's been scrutinised, they should be on their mettle to do things properly by the letter of the law. But there is strong feelings that people on that panel have allegiances to the EPL. But for me, arbitration will be running as we speak through the end of the month. You'll start hearing things break. The dream is that they know the cat case is coming and they bail out, but it's all hope. And if somebody tells you, you know, because we've had this for months, it's going to settle on the 2nd of February, it's going to settle on the 6th of June. It's all guesswork, you know. Speak to the club and they don't know exactly when this is going to break, start, finish, or end. All they can do is go through the various stuff. So for me, I think we're going to miss out on getting the cat case public because of time. The arbitration public because of time. But I think we could relax on the cat case. I don't see them keeping that private.
Okay, yeah, it's just been frustrating, Steve Hasty, hasn't it, to watch, and you know, we've been helpless for the last 15 months. But you know, we've said before, I think it's reaching an end game. I think the worrying thing from us as Newcastle fans is today's release of potentially just a £10 million budget available. Tells you that, you know, it's urgent that this gets sorted sooner rather than later if Newcastle are going to have any major play in the transfer market.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. And let's face it, we're being played by the politicians constantly. I mean, Chi put some great questions through to the DCMS and earlier in the week. And it's a cut and paste job from Oliver Dowden and from his team. You know, they're washing everything up in governance of football, the review that Tracy Crouch is undertaking, etc., as though this is some sort of panacea to all our ills. And quite frankly, I don't think it is. I feel as though that it's just typical of the way that the politicians of the day, the government of the day, treat people, whether they're football fans or whether they're the NHS workers, or whether there are people who are fighting various injustices. I think that they play lip service to you. You know, they treat us with contempt. They treat everybody with contempt. We shouldn't be surprised as football fans that Oliver Dowden's questions, questions were basically cut and paste jobs, because that's what they are and that's what we expect now. It's disappointing, because when you ask a question, you expect an answer, and you expect an answer that is an answer to the topic, an answer to the question, not a fob off, not this is nothing to do with us and this is in the hands. You know, you ask a straightforward question. Can you tell me how many times that you have had meetings with the Premier League and you get a bog standard? We are always talking to the Premier League about a number of things and that type of thing. When he knows fine well we're talking about the specifics of the Newcastle United case. But hey, huge thanks to Chi for again sticking her head above the parapet and going way beyond where she needed to. She's always been there for the fans. She is a fan. That's the main thing. When you've got politicians like Chi and like Ian Menz who are fans first, they know. Yes, they know the political game, but they know what we're going through as fellow fans, and they know how. And now they feel exactly the same in how they're being treated, because they've been treated just in the same contemptuous way as we have for the last 18 months. But now even their questions get responded to like that, Steve. And in terms of the 10 million, you know what, we heard 12 million. Now it's down to 10. I don't believe anything that comes out from the press, quite honestly, at the moment when it comes to that. I'm sure we'll cover something later on that talks about incoming players. But I think Mitch has said for weeks and weeks now how football has been affected financially by COVID. And that in itself should raise the whole aspect of the reality of being a Newcastle United supporter. There's been no income coming into the club. All of those type of things. Yes, the TV money, but even the TV money was slashed quite considerably when the likes of BN and other companies received refunds. They lost a lot on the China deal that collapsed, and when they replaced it with another deal, it was far worse. But football's been hit, sport's been hit in general, and so is the country and right the way through this last 18 months. So if we've only got 10 million, then we've only got 10 million to play with. What we're going to do? Are we going to sit there and go, we should have an awful lot more when we don't even have the financial results of the club to know exactly where we're in? So we can't even slag it off, can we? We're much in limbo as anything else when it comes to that, Steve.
Yeah, sad but true. I mean, Mitch, it's organised chaos. Dubravka's obviously out, going to miss the start of the season with a foot injury. On the positive side, Willock seems as if there's a little bit of hope there, but it sounds as if that's going to be a loan deal with an obligation to buy at the time of broadcasting this. But yeah, I mean, it's just frustrating, isn't it? Because we still find ourselves in the same position as we were this time last year.
It is frustrating, but the reality is we're in a situation now where the lads have talked about the politicians. If the politicians have washed their hands as much as they have of the questions that Newcastle fans have put to them, probably would have halved the COVID transmission in the UK. They just don't want to know. What doesn't help with is what we talked about at the start of the show. They look at scenes like that and think that's exactly who they're dealing with. So why should we bother? Look down the nose at football fans constantly, something I've had on occasion in my professional life because I'm an outspoken football fan. You get looked down at by some stupid nose Wazik in bloody the Royal College of Surgeons or something who makes fun of your accent and what have you. So do you. In terms of the transfer budget, what Steve's right. He's absolutely right. We don't know what the COVID financials are because he hasn't released them. He's done his usual bump the accounting period on a month so you can hang on to the papers a little bit longer. I suspect it will be carnage because it is for nearly every club. Of Barcelona scrambling to wheel and deal to get big wage earners off their books because at the minute they're not even going to be able to register players to sign. And that usually causes a bit of trickle down through the levels of football at the top flight, and it's not going to happen like that this year. There are few handful of clubs will be able to spend, but they'll be spending their cash reserves, and that'll be it. And they're banking on everything going back to normal pretty quickly, and I'm not convinced it will. We've lived within our means. We've had zero input in terms of money and 7 million capex off the owner in a 10-year period. Why should that change now? I think loan to buy deals is where it's at. Willock is one of them, and I know I've double checked this with Liam Kennedy recently. I was given some very interesting hope on his being in the region this weekend, possibly. And I think Liam's heard similar from his sources. So we'll see how that pans out. But the trouble is, as we've seen with Dubravka getting injured, deals can be switched off in an instant. So Freddie Woodman was on his way to Bournemouth. He was on his way to Bournemouth to do his medical, and then they joined him in their pre-season training camp. And suddenly Dubravka's got an injury, and he's on his way back to Newcastle. So until it's done, until the ink's drying on it all, and somebody's holding the proverbial scarf, let's just sit in hope. But it's very positive news from what I understand, and I'm pretty convinced by the time. My understanding is by the time the show's on the telly, will it will be in the region, but we'll see. That could change in 24 hours. So, but then what do we do after that? If our budget is 10 million and we're now being outbid on a centre back who originally we were told we could get for 8, and somebody's waving 20 their way, and then we've got to look somewhere else. And I think we've got to understand what position where we're at with it, and it's frustrating because at the end of the day, we know why there's this hold up. This isn't a time to defend about Ashley in any way, shape, or form. But we are what we are, and until we get an answer one way or the other from the Premier League about via the legal stuff, we're working with what we're working with. But I do think the moves that are made in the next sort of week could be a significant pointer as to how the owner's feeling about where things are going to go. And I think, I don't think anybody, I'm even going to hazard a guess that Bruce doesn't really know how much he's got to play with. But we're hearing all sorts of silly stuff, saying that Rafa wants to take St. Maximin Everton. Really? He's a player he didn't want to spend any money on to bring in. So what's he going to take him to Everton for? That would show a marked change in his thinking, and I just don't see that. He doesn't strike me as the kind of Rafa player, to be honest with you. I don't think he'd gel with Rafa. I hope that we can maximise what we do get in to give her a platform to build on. And I would love to see personally Willock back in a black and white shirt, even if it is 1 year loan. So be it. He'd be back in a black and white shirt, and the difference he made to that team at the close of the season was huge. And that's a positive. It's still positive, even though it's a loan and not necessarily a signing.
Yep, good stuff. Keith, just coming to you on the potential signing of Willock and the injury to Dubravka. Just your thoughts on that?
I wouldn't have let Woodman go in any case. So on Dubravka, first of all, I think he's way out in front. I'd have been happy to hear them say they were selling other goalkeepers, but I've spoken to people about all four who've had close looks at them, and to me, Woodman's. I'd hope this year that Woodman was going to be number 2, and I think in the same way, to a certain degree, Fraser Frost had come back and bit us, because you looked at him and you've seen him playing games, you thought, Christ, we just let him go for next to now. I think, Woodman's pedigree has been first class. He's a cracking goalie, so I wouldn't let him go. I do think that Dubravka's way ahead of everybody, and I think it's a class act, but I would keep Woodman and I'll get Woodman involved in thinking of selling other keepers off really and bringing another young'un in behind Woodman. On Willock, I'd love to see him in the black and white shirt. If only to watch him to see if he breaks that record. I'd like to see him there. If he scores the next goal, he's done Shearer's record, because he's equaled it now. So I think he's a great kid. He's got a great attitude. He looks like someone who's pleased to be in. He looks, I don't know, just everything he does, he just oozes class, that kid. So he's definitely the kind of player I'd like in. But when you look at other people mentioned to come in as well, they talk about like Josh King and that. I don't get excited by that. It's like saying he was okay before, but he didn't out at Everton. And people say, well, the Bournemouth connection, but Fraser on the Bournemouth connection hasn't done us any good. And he's a player I'd happily say the back of me. I just don't think he's got the right attitude. So I think going back and trying to regroup players who played together is a dangerous tactic. I don't think. I'd rather they went into Europe and into South America and brought, a couple of players from them areas that were attacking players, people with flair, and an up and coming young centre forward. You got to think. You remember the age of our forwards now. What age they are. We haven't got youth on our side. When we look at Carroll Gale. The age for them is you'll get one more payday on Gale, and will you get another season out of Carroll, or has he gone? I don't know what's happening there with him.
Yeah, it's gone silent on that. You get the impression if things get desperate, he might be given the call, but nothing at the moment.
Yeah, but on ours, I would rather see a young forward come in, 22, 23-year-old, like a powerhouse. And there's plenty there that can be bought for sensible money. And when you're talking to centre forwards, I think Ashley would put the money forward because it's stock value. There's potential of getting a strong centre forward from abroad and bringing him in is always positive, and it always gives you the chance and hope that something's going to happen. So I just think that people forget. They think, oh, you get Josh King, you'll get him for now. The contract for Josh King to bring him to Newcastle would be phenomenal. The salary, signing on fees, agent fees. You could go abroad and buy a striker that'll give him 10 years and has all the potential in the world. And to me, that's what we should be looking at. But sorry.
It's the age-old thing, isn't it, about free signings on free? And I think the other thing about signing an Englishman at the minute now, you're going to be paying a premium.
Yeah.
Because of Brexit and because of certain rules about how people get working visas. So picking the kids up from abroad is not so straightforward as it was once now. And so you're caught in this catch-22 whereby you might identify a hot young talent abroad, but does he qualify for a work permit? Does he qualify for the working visa? And how much of the paperwork is there connected with that signing? It's certainly a far trickier minefield now than it was before, and as a result, you're going to be paying well over the odds for UK-based players, people who come with a UK passport. It's a mess, really, and it's going to be very, very difficult for the team looking to sign people to find those little gems abroad, because you might find them, but making them our player and eligible to play in Britain, the UK, might be tricky.
100%. Yeah. Big thank you to our sponsors, as always, Spider VPN. Just Google Spider VPN for all your internet security. They come up at the top of the search list. Give the lads a shout. Big thank you to them for sponsoring us for another month. And to skipsandbins.com. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract free, and pay as you go waste collection. And as we all know, Sir Bobby was on his way to London today to do his little bit for the protest, him and his other worker bees. So big shout out to Scott for giving them the time off from skipsandbins.com to buzz around and create their own nuisance to the Premier League, who've put this takeover on the back burner and tried to ignore it. Also, a big thank you to qtechshop.co.uk and John, big thanks to him, I guess, from Protest NUFC for organising the protest. He's put a lot of time and effort into that off his own back over the last couple of weeks. I know it hasn't all been plain sailing, but fair play to him for putting his head above the parapet and getting things sorted and organising that. It's not an easy task to herd cats, as Mitch would say. And a big shout out to Jab Signature as well for all the flyers that they have done. And I was really impressed with the flyer for this week, lads. I think he did a cracking job to boldly go where no man has gone before. I thought that was pretty good. And Steve, you came off quite well there. Steve, you're on mute. We've missed you there, mate. You've a bit of
sorry about that. Yeah, it's a marked improvement. I was expecting to be one of the two on either side of you, Steve, to be perfectly honest. So
I think it was always either going to be me or Keith as Jean-Luc Picard. I think Mitch is the medical officer there, and you've done very well. Done very well. Of course, the character that you're playing there, Steve, is Geordie.
Is it? Is that the character?
No,
isn't it spelled with a J?
No, that's the guy with the visor thing on.
It's called Geordie. Oh, it's Geordie one with the mask on. Oh, right, there we go then. Sorry, Steve, I built your hopes up and Mitch has dashed them. But very good, John. Thanks for doing that. If you're a first-time visitor to the channel, please hit the Newcastle Legends logo and you can subscribe for free. Hit the thumbs up to like the video. Click share to share the broadcast to your social media and drop into the comments box. Despite it not being live, comments are still open and you can speak to like-minded Newcastle fans. Don't forget, Matchday Bucket is still operational. NUFCfansfoodbank.co.uk. Just make a small donation. It keeps it ticking over until we're back at St James's Park in August. And you go into the raffle for the one-off watch. And the winner will be announced at the NUFC Matters Charity Pool Night on Friday, the 6th of August, which is raising funds, of course, for the food bank. And don't forget the website, which John from QTech kindly set up, sells the fab for hoodie, nufcmatters.com. And just a reminder that in August, when we have a little bit of time off, the Newcastle United programs are being recorded as we speak, and they will be up and running on week commencing the 23rd of August. Some interesting chats, some great programs, and hopefully by the time this goes out on Friday night, Doncaster tickets will be announced. And that is, of course, a week on Friday. So Doncaster versus Newcastle. If you're wanting a bus down there, book Shambles Travel on 07791 417 779. Speak to Amanda and she will be able to book you a ticket onto that bus. Okay, it is no Toon tipster this week. There's nothing to tip. We'll give him a week off. Plus, he's in London as well for the protest. So we will go to Tweet of the Week, where Steve Hasty and I go through some of the best tweets that we have seen or been sent this week, and some brilliant ones. I've got to be perfectly honest. We'll start with this one, Steve, from Kaz.
Yeah, this takeover, it's like waiting for a white smoke to come from the Vatican. And too right it is. Dear me, it's unbelievable. It's taken, I think even the Vatican's gone through 3 popes since this takeover started, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, you're not wrong. This one was brilliant from Claire.
Yes, this effing takeover's taken ages from Claire. And there she is. She's all dressed up and everything. I hope the lass hasn't been dressed up like that since 2017, Steve, when you first met Amanda, by the way.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, we've got this one from NUFC blog.
Yes. I've kept quiet, but Masters went downhill in my estimation with the no comment. We've not resorted to that, but we're still fighting for this takeover. He's got to go to arbitration and get something. And I'll tell you, honestly, I'd love it if we beat them. And there's the famous Kevin Keegan quote. And you know what? It sticks in my throat that people think he had a meltdown. He didn't have a meltdown. We all stood in front of the TVs, whether it was in my living room or in the pub, and we cheered him on like anything on that particular game when he stood there. So everybody now rewriting history and saying that Keegan had a meltdown that day. Did he? Hell, he spoke for what we were feeling, didn't he? That's the way I look at it.
Of course he did. This one from Chion Wura.
Yes, a long discussion with Amanda Staveley, and that's obviously Mia Dad and his Twitter handle on the Premier League, the lack of transparency over the NUFC takeover process and what they might have to hide at arbitration. Oliver Dowden says football is nothing without fans, so why does he allow the Premier League to leave fans so totally in the dark? It's a lovely picture of the Zoom call, conference call that the three of them had last Saturday. Great to see them interacting with the local MP for Newcastle Central, and we all see that the outcome of that were the questions that she raised in Parliament on. I think she lodged them on Monday. They were out on Tuesday, and we've had responses to on Thursday. So that's what happens when you talk and speak to each other. Craig O'Brien replying to Mr. Wraith, I remember when far left and far right meant our 2 wingers hugged the touchline to supply crosses for our number 9. He's got the old question and he's got the old cry. And yeah, we've been round the houses on this one, haven't we, Stephen? You know what? I think it's best we keep away from politics for the next couple of weeks. We've said enough, to be perfectly honest. But I think we all know what he was getting at, but we all know what you were getting at there as well, Steve.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Now, I love this one purely because of the date, Steve.
Yes, 11:48 on it was the 22nd of February. So obviously an American. 2013, England just lost the Euro 2020 final against Italy on a penalty shootout. Nothing has changed then. How's he managed that? What's going on there? That's a Twitter for BlackBerry message.
He's using a bloody BlackBerry as well, Jesus.
Exactly. Aye. Like, are they still around? Dear
So
me.
he's obviously a very good clairvoyant. Like,
Aye, well, we're gonna have a word with Toon Tipster tomorrow and find out whether he talks to him, whether he gets his tips from him now.
it's not that guy. It's not that guy out the Back of the Future, is it? It can only be him or Doctor who sorted that out. Like, but absolutely brilliant, that one. Tom Dixon, one of our regulars.
Tom, anyone else used to put a plastic bottle in the back of their bike so it sounded like a motorbike?
Lolly sticks.
Lolly sticks.
Aye, lolly sticks.
Yeah.
There's lolly sticks in ours.
Okay, this was about this
playing cards for me.
playing cards.
This is a belter. Lee Ryder, NUFC have frozen the season ticket prices at the same rate as the 2019-2020 season. And Ryan Beatty has responded, hardly surprising when the club is frozen in effing time and has been since Ashley took over. I tell you, he was quick. He was quick off the mark.
I did like that one.
Yeah.
And this one, in response to NUFC 360.
Yes. NUFC 360 came out and said Newcastle's recruitment team have been told they have a budget of 10 million this summer. Likely to send on one player, at least 2 loan deals. It is said they want a left-sided centre-back and 2 midfielders. And it said, like Steve Wraith auditioning for Rapunzel with a handful of feathers.
Okay, we're down to the last 2. This is the one in second place.
Right, so we've got tweet of the week for us, where it's Jarvis. You do realise, Graham, that you go back to Bruce after this, and there's Gareth Southgate just reminding Graham Jones exactly where he's heading when all this tournament's over. And the look on Graham Jones's face, I think, probably says it all. That could have actually been a genuine quote, couldn't it, by the look on his face?
Oh, 100%, 100%. And last but by no means least, the winner this week.
Yeah, there's the winner. You know, Steve Wraith out in the shops now. The Steve Hasty doll.
That's from Kenny Ranson, who's one of our regulars. Steve, you need to clamp down on this. I do like the fact that he's covered up the essentials there. But that is brilliant, Steve.
We having words with him, I tell you.
Even the eyes look like you, Steve. Even the eyes are perfect.
You reckon?
Why, yeah.
We have words tomorrow and all then.
There's one for John from Q-Tech. I bet he can't start knocking lookalike dolls up, but we'll leave it to him. We'll give him a couple of weeks. Brilliant stuff. Thanks, everybody, for your tweets of the week. Yeah, great stuff. Always good to get those kind of things sent in. Keith, I've set Keith off again now. Quick one for the food bank, Steve. Bobix are doing a chat with me and Liam Kennedy. We're both going to pop over on the 5th of August, 7:30 until late. Just tell us a little bit about it and a bit about the food bank for those people who maybe are tuning in for the first time.
Yeah, Bobix is the punch bowl on Jesmond Road, just at the junction of Jesmond Road and Sandyford Road. They have a little area upstairs since the whole place got converted, and it's done out as like they do cinemas, shows and bands on, and it's quite an intimate little area, and it does some excellent beer and food, and they're very kindly offered as part of they have a fantasy football team that the lads run out of the pub anyway, and they just wanted to do something and thought, you know what, let's do something for the food bank before the season starts. And obviously, you know, we've been pretty quiet. We've had a great summer in terms of support from the fans coming back through. You know, the t-shirts that have been bought. You know, the virtual bucket that has continued throughout it. But now we're getting back into going to match, hopefully, and you know, we're planning to be there for the friendly against Norwich, and then obviously the start of the season West Ham game. But this is an opportunity for Liam to get out and about. A lot of people have never met Liam before, and it'll be great to sit and listen to Liam chew the fat about Newcastle United. He's had some great stories over the last 6 to 12 months about Newcastle United. He's got his finger on the pulse, and it's an opportunity for people to meet him, chat to him, but more importantly, for you to hear from you and from Liam exactly where we feel the club's heading, and that's what we want. Let's get out and about. Let's start talking about the positivity of football. That's what I'm looking forward to. All the money that's raised is going to go to the food bank. £10, I think, is to get in. Get your tickets quickly because, as I say, the room's fairly small and fairly intimate. So I think you're probably talking a maximum of between 60 and 80 people. But I think it'll be a really good evening on a Thursday night before the season starts. And it's the night before the pool night, which we've got running 24 hours that John and the guys from QTech have put together for us, which again, hopefully will be a fantastic fundraiser. So we'll just get yourself along if you can. Go on the matters, find it, get your ticket, and come along and support it.
Yeah, www.bobiks.com is where you can buy the tickets. So that's BOBIKS, www.bobiks.com. Let's make it a real NUFC Matters night out. That would be great. We'll get along, support the food bank. It's only a tenner, and it would be great to get a chance to meet as many people as we can. Okay, it's Julie Baker's favourite part of the night. Not many trolls of the week, to be honest, for me. Quite a lot for Keith. Maybe Keith should have done this section tonight, but I did manage to find one person having a little bit of a sly pop at us without copying us in, and it was Billy Downey, who says, back to Brucey Ball and Steve Wraith thinking he's gangsters' best mates. Thanks, Billy. Not sure what you mean by that. I'm a crime author, not gangsters' best mates, but yeah, you're the troll of the week. Last 10 minutes, and obviously, as I said earlier, this is a pre-recorded show, but quite a disappointing tweet just coming out and about over the last couple of hours from Cheon Wura, Keith, where she mentions that she tabled a series of detailed questions on the Premier League's accountability, transparency, and the NUFC takeover process. But what she actually got back from DCMS Minister was a series of cliches. Essentially, the answers were as follows. It's always been for the Premier League alone to make assessments of potential acquisitions of football clubs in its league under its owners and directors test. So it's for the Premier League alone to make decisions on some of our biggest cultural assets. But also that the Football Review would consider the current owners and directors test and the transparency and accountability of that process must keep them to that. Hashtag NUFC is what she says. Yeah, I mean, look, this isn't a surprise, is it? But fair play to Chi. She did raise the questions, Keith.
I think the whole thing stinks. I think Chi's done her best. I don't think she'll do any more. But on this whole thing, the point that Tracy Crouch has already said to us that she can't get involved. She's told fans to leave her alone, in this many words. But I wrote to Boris Johnson on the 27th of December and told him that he's going to appoint Tracy Crouch in April. And then she in turn was going to appoint the FSA, who are funded by the EPL. So they've never answered that. They've never answered that at all. So why is the EPL allowed to fund its own fans-led review? And all they're going to do is take low-hanging fruit and put a few simple things into action. They're not going to do anything. Nobody's going to come forward and say what's happening at Newcastle United stinks, because there's not enough wins for Boris Johnson or for the government like there was when he stopped the ESL. When he stopped the ESL, there was riots happening around the country and there was great outrage and the whole national game was at risk. But we're just one small club in their eyes in an unfashionable part of the world where levelling up doesn't exist. I think levelling up must stop about Watford area. So nothing that she's got in answers surprises me. I'd have been highly surprised if she had got better answers, but they were cut and pastes. That's all they were. They were just cut and pastes, and they were just cliches regurgitated by people who are dollying through a job. The only thing I'd say to people is there was always described a blue cloak around the northeast where certain seats, and some of them were areas that I know. There's places like I think it was Redcar and Sedgefield and Bishop Auckland, and I think it won the Blythe constituencies went up. But I'd love to see how they're going to get them this next time round, because the fans who support Newcastle in their various areas, feel cheated that they voted for people to come into power. And they've asked the MPs to come forward and help them. And even this week, I got letters off people who wrote to their MP and were told the government can't get involved, which is just a pack of lies, in my words, or disingenuous in a QC's words. It's totally immoral what they're doing. So for me, nothing's going to change. Whatever we get, we'll have to fight for. We'll have to get ourselves. And the only way we're going to get what we want is by having excellent legal work. That's the only way we're going to do it, is by embarrassing people into giving us this takeover. And what she's done all the way through it, above all of the MPs, she's spoken like a fan, and she's spoken like somebody who wants to represent Newcastle. And she's in a sense, she's failed through no fault of her own. She's failed because government won't be touched. But when they do that, when people cut and paste cliches like that, it's putting two fingers up at it.
Yeah, Steve, I think Keith's covered it really well there.
Absolutely, and I couldn't agree more. I have my own opinion on the Tracy Crouch football-led review. It's like all of the other football-led reviews. We've talked about this low-hanging fruit. There'll be aspects of her findings that'll come out very, very early, probably the back end of July, because she said she was going to bring out a provisional report in July, and then the full report coming out around about the end of September, beginning of October. And that's where the low-hanging fruit will be. That's where the things that the Premier League like the sounds of, something that they can introduce and implement immediately. And if that's something that can tighten up the owners and directors tests to make the Newcastle takeover almost impossible, you can guarantee they'll jump on that, and they'll shout it from the rooftops. Quite frankly, we're never ever on a level playing field. Never going in on a level playing field with the EPL. Yeah. Never have done since 2017. Never have done since the summer of 2020. Everything that they play with is there. Running on their rules, by their game, with their ball, and it's a case of, we might let you in and we might let you talk to us if we can be bothered. It's contempt. It's the people's game, and the clubs themselves need to take a firm, hard look at themselves. There's 20 of them that form the EPL, and if anything is wrong with football, it's when you have a bunch of self-opinionated people running an organisation in the manner that the 20 clubs run the EPL. They've put Masters and Hoffman in and the rest of the executive board, and they could get tomorrow the 14 take Newcastle out of it, probably because they probably wouldn't even give her a vote. But you take the other 13 clubs, take away the big six, and you go, it's within your will here to allow this takeover to happen. What have you got to fear? And you know what the Premier League have done? The Premier League sit there, the top six, and then let's face it, you get into Europe. There's one club out of the top six gets into Europe every season. It's either a Leicester, it's either a Wolverhampton Wanderers, or it's an Everton getting into the UEFA Cup, either by default because they won the Coca-Cola Cup or whatever it's called now, or because of a league position. And because of that, they all sit there going, we don't want to risk it. We don't want to risk. And let's face it, the UEFA Cup is not just the second cousin. It's the second cousin twice removed from the real European football of the Champions League. You can just tell that by the number of clubs out of the so-called Super Premier League that actually win the UEFA Cup.
Yeah.
It goes to Spain every time. It goes to the top teams in Spain almost every single time now. And it's to me it's a club that plays. It doesn't even play the tune. It tells them what tune they've got to play. It forces the hand of the other clubs, and they're all scared stiff of what's happening, and they don't realise that this could be of a benefit to them as much as anything else. But it's the whole stitch up, and you look back in the history of reviews that have been conducted. That have been set up by the Premier League over the years, or set up by various governments from 2000, 2005, and so on. You look at all the recommendations and they never get implemented. This could be different because this could be something that they want. I wouldn't be surprised if one of the things they come out with, which is what the top six desperately want, is that the league gets cut down to 18 teams by 2024. And the Premier League will go, yes, because that brings us in line with Europe. That's what they want, because that's then the start of the conversation that we'll have again about the revamped Champions League, excuse me, which has already got far too many games to be played. And then that suits those clubs that are in the Champions League. And if there's anything going to come out of it, it'll be that. And to be perfectly honest, I did actually hear from someone quite high up, and Mitch heard as well, someone that we respect in the football world. And he said that it was almost a given that would come out of this review, because it was part of the review of football with Operation Big Picture, or Project Big Picture, and it was part of the ESL that we had to have only 18 clubs in that. And I can see that coming in. I can see that one of the first things that would jump on if she turns around and said it would help.
Yeah.
So pitch up, man.
I put that in my letter to Boris Johnson on 27th. I said there'll be 18 teams.
The clock's beating us. Last word to you, Mitch, on this before we finish off, because I've got to go, with it being a pre-record, I've got to go and get my tea now before I do Super Mac and Gibbo.
Steve hit the nail on the head about being a stitch-up. I think what will come out of it is that there'll be, in terms of what fans say they want, there'll be a number of cleverly worded, simple statements, low-hanging fruit, that will be worded in such a way it'll be very, very difficult to make for the FSA or any of the trusts that have discussed things with the FSA to come out and criticise it, because if they do, they'll look like they're ungrateful, and therefore everybody will just nod their head, the status quo will remain. The government will say, well, we've done my fan-led review, we've given you what you want, what else do you want to ask for? It's just going to be stitched up. If you want to have an idea how messed up the football world is at the minute, the Football League putting Peter Ridsdale on their advisory board this week. The man who ruined Leeds United when they were on the cusp of becoming one of the biggest clubs in Europe is now an advisor is placed on their advisory board. Advisor for what? Advisor for what? How to kill fish? How to kill flowers? Because what he did at Leeds United was nearly criminal. And that's how messed up the football world is. That's how messed up this fan-led review would be. It's a lip service. So the government gets something out of it, the Premier League get what they want out of it. But what people are hoping to get out of it, I very much doubt they're going to get out of it. And the power within the fans will remain with the same old faces within the FSA, and it'll all be lip service and round the roundabout go again, and nothing will ever really change. And until something drastic is done, until we see a bigger intervention, and this is what this weekend's all about, that you guys are going down to, is we need somebody higher up to stand up and say, no, enough's enough.
Yeah, great stuff, lads. Great show, great 2 hours as always. A safe journey to everybody coming back from London after today's protest. Saturday, we have a Dream Team special with Chris A from the Worldwide Squad, picking his all-time 11. And then on Sunday, we have something a little bit different. It is an interview with Professor Dick Hobbs about his new book, The Business, Talking with Thieves, Gangsters and Dealers. Very interesting interview. Good guy, Professor Dick Hobbs. He was a good friend of mine when he was at Durham University, and well worth a watch. That we talk a little bit about his life and what prompted him to delve into criminology. But fantastic interview. That is on Sunday, and of course we will be back next Friday. Have a good weekend, lads. Take care.
Yep. All the best.
Cheers, everyone.
See you later.
Best.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You love